Hey everybody, Season 3 of KonoSuba is here, and it wastes absolutely zero time getting the ball rolling. We pick up right where we left off, and in most series that would probably be very straightforward, but since there are several different places somebody could potentially think that is in this show, I'm going to take a moment just to clear things up. We are not starting after the OVA. An OVA is something that's by itself, and that is basically its own thing. We are not starting after Season 2. The reason for that, even though that would normally be the default, is because there was actually a movie that was released between the time that Season 2 came out and our Season 3 debut that we're talking about here. And it's after the events of that movie, where our heroes go to the village because Megumin and Yunyun are concerned that something may be happening to their families, that we are going to be picking up. They had some adventures there, some things happened, and oh boy did we pick up on some consequences from the stuff that went down. And we are still milking it for comedic value at the start of the episode. I think this was pretty smart on their part because this way they were able to give at least a brief glimpse at what happened there and tie it into the season, since they obviously wanted the reactions and thoughts and feelings of the characters from that particular situation to actually carry over. And I think they did a really good job of blending it into the episode. Although, if you haven't seen the movie, it's on Crunchyroll and I'd highly recommend it. I watched it last night and it was hilarious. But enough on that, let's get on with talking about episode 1 of season 3. To begin with, we should talk about the fact that as the episode opens, we find out that Kazuma has PTSD. He is not doing so hot. His adventures in the Crimson Demon village have left some scars on his psyche, and we're gonna have to see exactly how that is going to play down. Just for reference, for anyone who's wondering what happened to Kazuma, we can say two things. A bunch of orc women tried to use him to create their own harem, and a chimera who had super uber big boobs decided to not tell, but rather show him that in their makeup, a penis was included. Kazuma did not approve. That's pretty much what you need to know, because that is what is driving Kazuma completely up the wall, and he is still seeing visions of the chimera in his head and hearing her speak, even after he's come back from this trip. So obviously this really messed with him, and it's going to have impact on his next decision, which is to decide that he's going to have a holy awakening, and he decides that, hey, I think I'm done being an adventurer, and that instead of that, I'ma be a monk. And we get some real great humor here. We get him talking to the guild person at the counter, and her asking him what faith he wants, and he's like, I just want the strictest faith you've got, because he just wants to be away from any possibility of female orc domination or like surprise attacks from somebody trying to be romantic with him in any way, because like, yikes. It's one thing if somebody's into those things, it's another thing when you either didn't want or consent, or when something is snuck up on you. I can totally understand why he would be like, no thanks. But yes, the episode's core theme is about Kazuma deciding he wants to be a monk, and his friends going, what the hell is wrong with you, my dude? And doing everything in their power to get him to come to his senses. Let's see if they succeed, shall we? Something that happened in the film that I super loved, and that I'm so glad that they decided to reference in this episode, is that Megumin, near the end of the film, actually decided that she is going to give up on explosion magic, and that she's going to specialize herself out into other fields so that she would be of more use to the party. She actually gives her leveling card to Kazuma and tells him that she wants him to pick her new skills. He goes ahead, he uses the card, he does the deed, he gives it back, and then he's like, one more for the road, like one more explosion for old time's sake, because she's basically said that she's never going to use it again. So she's like, okay, I guess. And of course, being the amazing friend that he is, despite all his other flaws and faults, Kazuma has put all of Megumin's points into explosion because he knows that that is what she truly loves, and while he would love to have somebody who has more skills and more abilities and everything, he doesn't want his best friend to lose her identity in the process of trying to achieve that. And to me, that was just so heartwarming. When we see reference to that here in this episode, we actually see Megumin having a response to that situation around a campfire, because now it's Kazuma who is having a question of faith and who is struggling with who he is and who he wants to be. And Megumin doesn't want things to change. Megumin wants everyone to keep adventuring. Megumin is so distraught at the idea that Kazuma might abandon the party that when he argues that his resolve is as sturdy as a mountain in the distance, that she immediately blows the mountain up. I love Megumin. She is so absolutely precious and is probably my favorite character in the show, along with Kazuma. And it was really sweet to see this overall sequence of events between the two, because I think that their interactions are some of the most precious, not just in KonoSuba, but in anime overall. And I really, really like how they play off of each other. And they did a really great job here. But what about Aqua and Darkness? What have they been doing? Don't worry, I've got you covered there too. Aqua has some really great jokes about booze or bubbly. And she also has a couple really great spots where she's actually trying to impart her wisdom on Kazuma, since he is trying to go this whole monk route. And of course, her wisdom is the anti-wisdom and is hilarious. And of course, Kazuma, even in his state of mind at the moment, is able to recognize that, and obviously he does not do the things that she says. There's also a reference to her suggesting that he become a monk for Axel, and he's just like, hell no, that's how I got into this whole mess to begin with, which was fantastic. As for Darkness, there's a scene where they are going along and they are sleeping around a campfire, and Kazuma has offered to take watch because he has all of the danger detection skills and everything, and Darkness is like, don't be afraid to wake me up. If you get tired, you can be rough about it if you want. Classic Darkness stuff. I've never been a big fan of Darkness's whole sexual masochism stick, but I'm glad it's there because, I think that it's really important that each of the characters has really distinct and unique tropes and ideas behind them, and I know there are a lot of people who do find her super funny. She doesn't bother me, she's just not my favorite. But she really does come into her own at the end of the episode, because when they get back and everything, there's this part where somebody is at the door and they are all just like, no. Whatever it is, no. We are not answering the door right now. We do not want trouble right now. We just want to chill, relax, do our thing. But when the door opens, they find out that it's actually Darkness. I think it's her butler or something. And he's all like, "Milady, your one asset is in jeopardy." And it's like, oh dear, what the hell does that even mean? And of course, Kazuma makes a joke about it being her boobs, because of course he does. He's Kazuma. What did you think was going to happen? But it turns out that there is this princess who wants Kazuma and friends to come and tell her about their exploits. And Darkness is just like, no, you guys are gonna get beheaded. And it's got her running around, it's got her falling on the floor and almost having a freaking tantrum. It was absolutely great. It's some of the best comedy I've personally seen from her. My favorite things from her are anything to do with her whole noble background, or any time that she's dealing with a male demon. I always like that kind of stuff. I always find that really funny. But she definitely had some great stuff, so definitely don't count anyone out. Everybody had fun stuff this episode. With the first half of the episode being used to tie in the movie to season 3 and give the overall plot of the series some structure, obviously we were going to reach a point where we went from referencing what was happening in the film to actually building and establishing what's going to be going on in season 3. And the turning point that they used for that was actually the introduction of this plant monster who uses sympathy to try and get the guard of any travelers going by down, so that she can then turn around and eat them. The 3 girls immediately flock to her, immediately sympathize with her, immediately feel sorry for her. And it's only Kazuma who's like, wait! And even he ends up eventually giving in, and nothing happens to them. They actually get away perfectly fine for whatever reason, and they're off doing their own thing, walking toward the temple again. Kazuma's still thinking he's gonna be a monk, and then he gets this idea. Hey, I'm gonna be living in the temple near here. I should go back and talk to that monster who turned out to be friendly, and talk to her about not eating people and offer to bring her food from the temple instead. Alrighty then, Kazuma. Of course, we all know this is gonna go wild, don't we? Anyway, he goes back and he's all ready to do this and everything, but he can see that she has pulled her roots out of the ground, that she has had somebody contained there, that she's drained them dry, and he hears her gloating about the fact that the next time that a bunch of travelers come by, she's going to use the stuff she learned from interacting with Kazuma and his friends to be able to increase the likelihood that she will be able to trick them and then consume them. And Kazuma's like, nope. Kazuma climbs a tree, goes up, brings something down, and takes her out. And among all of this adventuring and fighting and stuff that goes down, he ends up getting a hold of this mallet, which, it turns out, it can actually produce gold. So he decides, hey, it's time to just get back to life, everything's fine. There is a reference to the trauma that we saw at the start of the episode, but this time because he has the mallet, it has absolutely no impact on him. He's walking around like everything is fine and dandy. And then Chris shows up and takes the mallet. And then they are all down until the situation I described a few minutes ago with Darkness's butler comes up. And everyone but Darkness is basically seeing dollar signs as they think about the possibilities of what could happen by interacting with this princess. Because of course they are, because this is KonoSuba. Our characters have very morally gray personas, and even though they often do quests and potentially make money, they almost always lose it. Just like they did here. The end. Overall, I think that the first episode of Season 3 sets up a great intro to a new season with an interesting hook in the form of the princess, and by clearing up the lasting effects of what happened to Kazuma and friends in the movie, because I think it's much better to address it and then have something happen for him to like comedically move on than to just ignore that it occurred. I think that it was nice that they tied the movie in. And I think it's going to be really fun to see what happens as the season goes forward and we see them go to this castle. We see who this princess is and what inevitable quirks of character she will end up having and how they will gel with the others. I'm really excited to see more, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun. Anyway, for now I think we're done talking, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!